What is going on, everyone? Darkside Phil here, and wow, welcome back to the Hateful Truth video game review series where I give you maximum truth and minimum bullshit regarding the latest video game releases, and I haven't done this in a long time. The reason being I've been so busy with new releases and, quite honestly, busy planning an impending move out of this place. In fact, this will more than likely end up being one of, if not the last game review I ever do here from the Brown Couch in Connecticut. Okay, and mostly what I've been doing is if I do have a review or I beat a game and I want to talk about it, I do that in my weekly podcast series, Hate Live. So if you've been wondering where is this series been, has Phil reviewed games recently, the answer is yes, I actually have, but I actually did it on my Hate Live podcast, so you might want to check the past couple ones out and look in the timestamps to find out where I've been reviewing games, okay? However, in today's case, I wanted to do a special case here to review this game in an actual review because I am going to review a game that I feel has been critically panned by the mainstream gaming media simply because one particular person made a review of this game, panned the game, alright? Unfortunately, this person worked for one of the most reputable gaming media outlets out there, and immediately, directly based off of this guy's review, all other outlets felt, oh, we better kind of have our reviews in line with him, or else we're going to look like the odd guy out, and people might think that we're not as reputable as them. And I'm here to call bullshit. I am tired of reviews from mainstream gaming websites, IGN, GameSpot, and of course, those are the two huge ones that if they say anything, it's considered Bible truth, right? Then right under them, you got guys like Game Trailers, Game Informer, and then there's the mid-level online guys like Kotaku, and then of course you got the indie places like Giant Bomb and Screw Attack, right? Why is it that if the upper level guys say something that everyone kind of feels like they have to be in line with that person? And why is it that the more and more that I begin to look at these mainstream reviews, I realize how unprofessional and how hackish they are when it comes to journalistic integrity? The game we're about to review is a game that has a very unique premise. It's in some ways very similar to other things I've played, but it's the first game I've ever played where the entire game was based off of almost an investigation mechanic, okay? Has an incredibly compelling and interesting story that actually had me wondering until the very end what the heck was really going on. It is a murder mystery whodunit, and it's a game that I very much enjoy. And for me to play a game on my own, isolated, not listening to all the people around me and everyone saying, but I heard this game sucks, this review said it sucks, and for me to just play the game and objectively observe the content of the game versus other games that I've played, and objectively say, okay, here's what's in it, and then of course adding in my own subjective take on it, my personal preferences of what I like in a game and what I don't like in a game, I'm going to give you a review today of Murdered Soul Suspect for the PS4 that is for people who like narrative-based games, which is what this is, and for people who don't like narrative-based games. Alright, people who are looking more for challenging gameplay and a ton of it versus the narrative and story-driven kind of game, which is exactly what Murdered Soul Suspect is, okay? Why am I going to give you two review scores? Because I can see how a game like this can be polarizing, and I want to explain to you why exactly it would have that thing. Instead of me just saying, there's one score, it's the only fucking score, and now post that on fucking Metacritic and completely destroy the game and have the game have horrible sales, all because one fucking guy decided to write an article and gave it a low score. It's bullshit. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the internet. I'm tired of anyone who just bases their opinion of a game after a fucking score, especially from all places, IGN, who's over the years proven to have ridiculous, just over opinionated instead of factually based reviews. Everyone knows the review's supposed to have some of both. It's fucking common sense, but when I see these reviews that are 99% skewed towards the personal preference of the reviewer, I gotta call bullshit, alright? So first let me do my review, then I'll explain the situation and why I'm so upset. So, Murdered Soul Suspect has an incredibly interesting beginning. You are a detective you are investigating a serial killer in this town of Salem, Massachusetts, in the United States, called the Bell Killer. While you're investigating, you run into him, and incidentally, he ends up killing you by throwing you out of a second-story window. As you're dying in the middle of the street, he comes down and shoots you 7 times in the chest, murdering you in cold blood. All of a sudden, you realize you're a ghost, and you're able to freely move around, but you cannot seem to really physically affect much, if at all, in the universe anymore, and you're wondering what the heck is going on. After some plot exposition, you find that in this world, the world of Murdered Soul Suspect, if you get killed or you die, and you feel you have unfinished business on planet Earth, you cannot pass on to the next life. And so, the story of Murdered Soul Suspect is the story of Ronan O'Connor, this detective who was murdered, and now he wants to find out who is the Bell Killer, why the hell did he kill me like he just did instead of just trying to escape, what is the meaning behind these serial killings, and you're basically tied to Earth until you can solve the mystery. Now, Murdered Soul Suspect is unique in the fact that it does not follow conventional formulas. It actually has some really interesting ways in order for you to do things in this game and find clues. So, since you're dead, duh, you can do things that normal people couldn't do, like walk through freaking walls, okay? The way that the game explains it is that the town of Salem at one point had witch trials, and they used to hunt people who they thought were real witches in real life, and therefore at some point the town was consecrated. So some buildings have walls that you can't walk through because they've been consecrated, while other buildings don't, and you can walk straight through them. For the most part, some buildings you can walk through and some you can't, and it's also really story dependent. You really need to be there or not. That's kind of independent. They're going to depend on where you can travel in the game. Now, of course, immediately the game, unfortunately, kind of starts not following its own rules, because Ronan can walk through certain walls horizontally, but he can never go up or down. So why isn't he constantly falling through the floor? We'll suspend our disbelief, because let's face it, every single ghost story ever, the ghost doesn't start falling through the floors through the core of the planet, so that's okay, and I think we can put up with that. So, what does the gameplay of Murdered Soul Suspect encompass? Basically, you are on a quest to find out who is this Bell Killer and what exactly is going on with him. And so, first of all, you start looking for people who maybe have been involved in the killings. There's actually a psychic / medium who apparently has been helping the police in this investigation of trying to find the Bell Killer, but she's disappeared. In the course of trying to find her, you actually find her daughter, who has no idea where her mom is, but is also a medium and is actually able to see Ronan. The two quickly become kind of reluctant allies, and for the course of the game are trying to figure out what is going on with the Bell Killer. So, the game basically, has 3 different things that you primarily do, all of which are focused around investigating. So it really is about being a detective and looking for clues. The first thing is the main story. Now, if you just follow along the main story and you completely ignore all optional side content whatsoever in the game, you're probably going to say that the game is too short, because pretty much if you coast through the main story of Murdered Soul Suspect, you could probably beat it in about 5 hours or so, okay? So let me explain what you do on the main story. A lot of the times, you're just going to a new area. Maybe it's a church, maybe it's a mansion, maybe it's a museum, and you're walking around investigating, trying to find clues. Whether it's you interact with an object, whether it's you talk to a certain person, sometimes you actually possess a person, okay, and you try to read their mind to see exactly what they know about the crime. Sometimes you're actually, based off of clues that you find in an area, able to possess a person and then use the clues to figure out what happened and access a memory in their head that shows what they witnessed during a certain period of time. So it's a pretty unique mechanic in that regard. I would actually say the game is a combination of LA Noire, where you walk around, oh, what's this? You don't necessarily pick stuff up like you did in that game, but you can actually, oh, interact with this object. Oh, it's a clue. Interact with this object. It's not a clue. Or possess a person. Maybe they have information. Possess a person. Maybe they don't. Okay? But the possession mechanic is completely unique and interesting. Now, one thing that I do want to say about the game is that there is a bullshit aspect in the game. The bullshit aspect is that when you try to, for example, influence a person and make them remember something, you basically will have to interact with the clues that you found. So maybe you found 8 clues, but only 3 of them relate to this person, and you have to figure out which 3 they are. And you get 3 tries, supposedly, to do this right. Well, I can tell you this right now. During my playthrough, there was a time when I got it wrong, okay, a few times. I got it wrong more than 3 times. The game still let me try again. So even though it shows there's only 3 chances, the game is completely full of crap. If you screw up, you can infinitely try back until you finally pick the right clues and you're able to progress on with the story. I can tell you right now, there are some gamers who will have a lot of issue with that because basically, in effect, essentially, you can't really lose an investigation. If you remember back in LA Noire, you would always pass every investigation no matter what in the story, but you would get less points, and the less points you got, the harder it got later down the line to pass the investigations more quickly. In this game, it really doesn't affect anything. If you get an answer wrong, so what? Try again, boom, until you finally pass the investigation, okay? So that's the primary focus of the game. Now, there actually is combat. I know, for an investigation game, you may wonder, gee, in LA Noire, it was run and gun. It's nothing like that this time around. You're dead. How are you going to shoot a gun, right? In this game, the combat is based around demons. You may be saying, what the hell? Yeah, there's demons in the game. What actually happens is as you're maybe doing an investigation, you'll hear a blood-curdling scream. I mean it. It scared the shit out of me a bunch of times. And when that happens, it means that there are now demons in your area. By holding down a button, you can now see through walls, and you can see where there are considered safe spots where you can hide from demons, and you can actually see the location of the demons themselves. It's stealth-based combat, meaning you're never going to take a demon on head-on because you have no way to physically attack them from the front. But if you sneak up behind a demon, you can actually suck at their soul. I don't know what the actual explanation is. And then by doing a quick-time button combination, you can defeat them instantly, okay? Now, if a demon sees you, you're shit out of luck. You need to run to one of those hiding spots and keep basically jumping between them until the demon doesn't look for you anymore. There's no way to defeat a demon who's actually actively looking for you unless you're being stealthy and you find a way to sneak up behind them. Now, there is one variation on this mechanic, is that there are these birds. I don't know what the hell they're supposed to be because they're never explained, but they're these spirit world looking birds that if you do activate them, they'll make noise, and sometimes a demon will walk over to it and yell at it and get distracted, which allows you to sneak up behind and kill the demon instantly. So that's the combat of the game, and that's the extent of it. It's incredibly simplistic. Honestly, I think it's there to pad the game a little bit, honestly. I mean, there's no reason really for it to be in the game. If there were no demons in the game, it really wouldn't make any difference whatsoever. It would be the same exact game. I think they're trying to add on a little bit of trial and error so that there's a little bit extra gameplay in the game. Okay, that's part 1. Part 2, there's 2 kinds of side content, so that's the 3 kinds of things in the game. The second part, or the first kind of side content, is collectibles. Now, there's an insane amount of collectibles in Murdered Soul Suspect. They could range from a newspaper article to a scrap of paper from your deceased wife's diary that gives you backstory on yourself, to a photo on the wall that relates to your relationship with someone in the police department, to invisible hidden items that when you walk up to them they kind of sparkle, and then you can actually reveal them, and actually collect a certain amount of them. They actually unlock an additional side story that is kind of like, almost like a mystery, suspense, supernatural thriller. And I believe in the game there's about 8 of those. I'm not 100% on how many, but that's about roughly the amount of them there are. And let me tell you, there were some fucking weird ass, sometimes really like disturbing stories of like ghosts and mistreatment of people and that kind of stuff. The same kind of thing that the game is about. So that's completely optional as well. You don't ever, in the entire game, ever have to pick up any of the collectibles. All you ever need to do is find the clues and, you know, solve whatever the question is, do the investigation, and move on to the next one. But if you actually go for the collectibles, which, I mean, it's a detective game. You're a detective. You're supposed to be looking for clues, so finding the collectibles is kind of some of the point of the game, okay? It really fleshes out a side story and gives you so much more supplemental understanding of what's going on in the game. I can't fully explain in this review how important it is to get the collectibles because it would spoil the story. But basically, if you don't get the collectibles in the game, by the end of the game you'll know almost nothing about Ronin, you'll know almost nothing about some of the supplemental, side characters in the game. You won't even understand, honestly, the main plot, because you won't even know much about the characters who were involved. If you skip all of the supplemental collectibles, you're basically skipping the meat of the game, and yeah, okay, I beat the game in 4 hours. Yeah, but did you understand anything in it? No, because you skipped a major portion of the game. Now, admittedly, maybe the game developers, who are called, let me see here, because they are unique, are airtight games, maybe they should have made it mandatory that you get some of these collectibles, because I could really see, like, speedrunning through this game not knowing what the fuck's going on. For me, I was enjoying finding the collectibles because they were adding so much to the story, and it was a no-brainer. Duh, I'll take my time and I'll actually do it, okay? Now, there is a third kind of side content. I'm sorry, second kind, the third kind of content overall. That's actually unrelated to everything else, and it's side investigations. There's certain things in the game that'll happen where you'll run into another ghost that looks just like you. You talk to them, and for whatever reason this person cannot pass on because there's some reason they're tied to the planet Earth. There's something they need to resolve, but a lot of them can't even figure out what it is. For example, in one case there's a guy who thinks he may have caused a car accident that killed himself and others, and he can't forgive himself, so he can't move on. It's your job now to investigate around the area and find clues related to this supposed car accident and find out if the guy really did cause the accident or not. And based off of what you find, if you pass, okay, he'll pass on, and your reward, quite honestly, is either achievement points or a trophy, depending on what version of this game you purchase. So if you're not into being a completionist or an achievement hunter, these investigations, quite honestly, don't really add too much to the story, but it's nice that they're in there. And there's probably, I'd say, probably 5 to 10 of those overall the course of the game, and they are a nice break from just going from place to place doing the standard investigation and collecting 5,000 collectibles, okay? Now, I've pretty much described to you the entire game of Murdered Soul Suspect. So, to kind of confirm here, there's no New Game Plus, there's no second quest, there's no real reason, if you take your time the first time that you're playing the game, to ever go back and replay it. Because like I said, you can't really fail. In fact, the only time you can actually die in the game is if one of those demons that I mentioned gets you, then you just restart from, say, the beginning of that room trying to get by the demons again. But outside of that, there's really no way to fail the game, okay? And a lot of people, I'm sure, are going to have issues with that, and we'll get to that in a second. So what do I like about the game and what don't I like about the game? The narrative itself, the story, is very interesting. Finding out what are the relation of the characters. Is this guy, could he possibly be a suspect as the Bell Killer? What is really going on? The supernatural aspect of things. How does the afterlife work? Getting used to being a ghost. And I'll be honest, there's a few things in the plot that are a little bit confusing and don't really make sense. For example, maybe someone who was a character the whole game dies, and then all of a sudden they're just completely accepting that they're a ghost without, like, flipping out completely. And, like, now, wait a minute. If you just became a ghost, would you be completely okay and so bored and blasé as this person is after they died? I don't know. There is a plot hole at the end of the game. I will not reveal it here, but if you watched my playthrough of it, you know what the plot hole is. And I don't know why they didn't try to patch that one up, because it really, in my opinion, was the only plot hole in the game. The good news is it's not like a game-ending crippling one that makes no fucking sense, like someone's gone at the beginning of the game and all of a sudden they're back again at the end. Nothing like that. But it's just still annoying that there was a kind of plot hole that they never really explained in the game, and that was a little bit disappointing for me. But overall, the story of Murdered Soul Suspect, especially if you're getting the supplemental collectible materials with all the backstory in them, is a really fun, say 8 to 10 hour, depending on how long it takes you to play, what your speed and skill level as a gamer, romp through this world of Salem, okay? The gameplay. What do I think about the gameplay? Does it leave something to be desired? Yes. And really, I think where people are going to be divided on this game, do you play games because you really enjoy the narrative and the story, or do you play games because you enjoy challenge and a feeling of accomplishment when you complete a challenge, and you like the quantity of gameplay in a game? Because I'm going to draw a couple parallels now. Murdered Soul Suspect was very similar to the situations that L.A. Noire and Beyond Two Souls found themselves in. where for whatever reason, some gamers love this great, interesting story and narrative, and they really found it riveting, and they really were hooked on it, and, in that regard, they like the game. You're going to have others who are, well, wait a minute, this game is super easy, you can't really fail at it, you could die at the demons, but you get an instant checkpoint right before them anyway, and if you don't do the collectibles, the game's only 4 hours long, so what kind of a game is this? Those people will pan the game. People who actually like story, murder, mystery, suspense stories will love this game, okay? I find myself in the middle. I love narrative, and I was enjoying, 100% of the time I was enjoying the narrative, but there were 1 or 2 parts with demons that I was really frustrated at because they were cheap and boring, and I just wanted to get past them to continue on with the great story. And also, the fact that, yeah, I can understand there's not really a lot of complex gameplay in the game. It was meant to be a very simplistic game to get you from story point 1 to story point 2. Just like L.A. Noire and Beyond Two Souls were almost exactly the same, okay? And this is why some people, pan these games, alright? For me, I can see both sides of the fence. If you're looking, wow, I want to play this game and I want to be playing it for a couple of weeks, this isn't your game. You're going to beat it within a few days, if not one sitting, if you're one of those marathon gamers. And you're going to say, damn, I really didn't get my money's worth out of the game. But if you're okay with playing a 10-hour long game that has a great story, and that's what you're not going to nitpick the fucking game for not having complex gameplay and a ton of it and difficulty in the gameplay, you'll probably be along for the ride and really enjoy the game. This is the classic case, a great rental, okay? Or if you really like narrative and you're going to take your time to get all the collectibles, it's a buy. If, again, you're all about gameplay or difficulty, it's a complete skip. Don't even bother renting it, because all you're going to do is nitpick the fucking game the whole time. Alright? So, for me, I can review the game from 2 different perspectives. Myself, personally, as a gamer who loves story, but also likes to have some gameplay content in there that's maybe challenging, and also I did find a lot of tedium in the demon portions of the game. And by the way, there is one part of the game that's incredibly annoying. Let me explain. There's basically a series of investigations in the game. I never counted them, but I want to believe there's like maybe 8 major investigations that are the story-based investigations in the game. Whenever you pick up a collectible, it auto-saves, so you never have to pick that up again. If your console turns off by accident, you boot it, the collectible you already found it, you never have to go find it again. But it starts you back at the beginning of a stage. So if you're investigating, I don't know, an asylum, and you get halfway through it and you find most of the collectibles and you turn off your console, when you turn it back on, even though you found everything, you have to go through the whole stage again. And it's incredibly annoying if it was a stage that had a lot of tough monsters or a lot of tough demons you had to sneak by. That's annoying as shit. Why do I have to replay the whole stage? That's a critical game bug. Or I don't want to say bug, a design flaw, because obviously it was intentional. Why doesn't it have checkpoints within each investigation so that you don't have to go from point A back to point D? Instead, why can't you start at point C? They don't let you. It's really annoying. And I don't know why the hell they do that, okay? So, as a person who loves narrative-driven games, I'm actually going to give Murdered Soul Suspect an 8.5. As a person who absolutely is only about difficulty and the amount of gameplay, the complexity of the gameplay, etc., okay, I'm going to give Murdered Soul Suspect a 4.5, okay? But being that those are 2 facets of things that any real-rounded gamer should be looking for, not just one or the other, okay, I will average those together. Now, I'm not going to do an actual average. I'm going to give you what my honest thought is. I think the game is about a 7. Some people could probably say 7.5. I'm going to be a little bit forgiving here. I'm going to give the game a 7.5 out of 10, which ain't bad. On my scaling, remember, I'm very strict with the scaling that I give games. 7.5 out of 10 is what I give to Murdered Soul Suspect. So why was I so up in arms at the beginning of this review and so angry? I'll tell you why. Because IGN, who I'm really starting to get a bug up my ass about at this point, okay? IGN, who regularly puts out crap reviews. And when I say that, I mean, you heard what I just did in my review. I give you the facts. I told you the situations in which you would like the game and which people wouldn't like the game. I give you my honest opinion, but then I told you what I think people who are only looking for the other things, what their opinions would be. IGN does none of that. IGN just hands the game to the person and says, write a review, and the review could put whatever, they can put whatever the fuck they want in it, right? They could be completely, well, I remember reading a review a couple years ago, well, this game plays too much like older games from the 1980s, games have advanced since then, 5 out of 10. The game was meant to be a throwback to a game from the 1980s. The whole game had characters from the 1980s, music from the 1980s, references to the 1980s, and played like a Double Dragon from the 1980s. And the reviewer gave it a bad score because he's a fucking idiot and didn't understand they did exactly what they were aiming to do. And a person who was looking for a throwback to the 1980s would love this game. With this game, the reviewer who reviewed Murdered Soul Suspect does not like narrative-driven games. If you read the reviews that have come from this reviewer in the past, you would know that there's a pattern. This reviewer also reviewed Beyond Two Souls poorly and said that it was, again, some of the things I said in this review. Too narrative-driven, you can't really fail at the game. They didn't like that. Now, let me ask you something. If you're an editor at IGN, you're the boss of the people who review games, and you saw that they did a review about Beyond Two Souls. If you just read it, basically the whole review says, the game is completely narrative driven, it's too easy, and I don't like it because of that. Why would you give them a game that is purely narrative driven? You know what I mean? Like, it's the responsibility of the editor. If I read this review and said, oh man, this sucks because I can tell now I have an employee who doesn't like narrative driven games, and they're giving all these games lower scores because of that, I should find someone who likes narrative driven games and see what they think. Instead of just, well, that's it, that's the fucking Bible truth, let's put out our review, I don't give a shit. And that's really what the attitude has to be of an editor who sees these kind of patterns, yet allows these reviews to be published. Okay? I don't give a shit. Oh well, I'll hide behind the fact that a review is supposed to be an opinion, and an opinion can't be wrong, so, you know, it's bullshit. A review, an honest and objective, but also subjective review that's professionally done, has some of each. You list the facts, and then you list your personal preferences, and then you combine them. You don't base your review overly more on one or the other. This game, if you actually play it and do all the side content, is about 10 hours long. There were reviewers, it wasn't IGN, but there were other reviewers who said the game's 4 hours long. And because of that, people said 4 hour long, oh, instant skip. IGN gave this game a 5.5 out of 10, but if you read the review, you can tell the reviewer has a bug up their ass because they don't like the narrative-driven game style. They just want gameplay, 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 and challenging gameplay. Gave it a 5 out of 5. Guess what happened? Immediately, wow, IGN gave it a 5 out of 5. Well, the game looked good, but I'm not going to get it. And I have to tell you guys, there were so many people during the course of me playing this game on my streams who literally the first thing they said, is this game any good? Because I heard IGN gave it a 5.5, and I was going to buy it, but I canceled my reserve. But I want to see if it was any good anyway. I'm like, are you kidding me? Why do people act like sheep and base their purchasing decisions off of one fucking outlet? And I hate to say it, but after IGN gave it a 5.5, I guarantee you that other reviewers looked into that, and if they were going to review the game, well, IGN said 5.5, I can't give it a great score, because then how am I going to justify it? Because IGN's more reputable, so I'm going to have to lower my score now, but really, maybe I didn't dislike it as much, but I got to make sure that I'm in line with the mainstream sources, or else we don't look reputable. That's bullshit, okay? This game is not a bad game. If you like narrative-driven games, this game is fun. It's actually refreshing and different than a lot of games that I've played in a while, and it's a shame that so many people will now skip this game because of one fucking review and an irresponsible editor that doesn't do their fucking job. I'm tired of it. Stop believing the mainstream nonsense. If in 5 years' time we go back and we see that the reviews seem to make fucking sense, okay, but not the entire review is bashing the game for not having a lot of difficulty and a lot of gameplay. Wait a minute. Since when is that the end-all be-all of a fucking game? The problem is people don't even read the review. They just see the number score, and that's all they care about. 4 hours long, 5.5, that's it. That's all anyone heard about Murdered Soul Suspect. Which sucks because it had a lot of people interested in it beforehand. Don't be a sheep. If you're going to watch reviews, watch people who actually are going to give good reviews. I like to think that I'm one of them because I give you all this extra material that lets you make a judgment based off of your own intelligence and not what some fucking dumbass, unprofessional talking head is doing just because they work for a big wig gaming media company. And let me tell you, there's some assholes who work for those companies who are not professional, and the editors are not doing their jobs properly, so you're getting crap information. This game, by no fucking means, if you rate it objectively, could be a 5.5. Unbelievable. Alright. Thanks everyone for watching the Hateful Truth review of Murdered Soul Suspect, I hope that you find I give you maximum truth and minimum bullshit. I'll try to do this from time to time when I have the chance. I can't promise I'll be doing it often soon, because I am moving soon, but I had to do it this time. I'm glad I did. I feel much better about getting the truth out about it, and I hope that you'll spread the word so that people who thought this game sucked, maybe their opinion is a little bit turned. Thanks everyone, have a good night, and I'll see you later for another edition of the Hateful Truth. Peace.